Welcome back to the Swallow's Nest Homestead. Today we're talking about apple trees. Right now it's very early June and the apple trees have all bloomed, they've all leafed out, and so it's time to take a look at what our production is going to look like. It's a good time to prune out any dead wood. You don't want to prune out a lot of live wood because that can affect your apple production and the vigor of your tree, but now when the leaves are full on, it's a good time to, as I said, to prune out the dead wood. So let's take a look at some of our trees. Okay, so today, this is one of our larger apple trees. As you can see, it's got a pretty dense canopy. So I'm just looking at to see if there's any dead wood that needs to come out. I'm just going to take it all the way off, even though it is still live at the end, because I don't want that shoot going up into this branch. This is dead here. I'll cut that off. One thing to remember anytime you're pruning is always to disinfect your pruners between cuts. It's really important to help stop the spread of disease from tree to tree, or even within the same tree. You can cause it to be further infected. I prefer just to use diluted vinegar and spray it on and then wipe it off with a paper towel. You can also use disinfecting wipes or things like that, but it is now recommended that you don't use bleach because it actually can corrode your tools and shorten the longevity of your tools. So always remember to disinfect your pruners, loppers, pole pruner, any type of pruning tools in between cuts. Okay, I'm looking up at one of our smaller mature trees and you can see some apples there, and those are all just single apples, surprisingly. There's a pear there, a pair of apples, not a pear. And now it is also a good time to check for clusters of apples. If you have really dense clusters, it's a good idea to thin them. Thinning clusters of apples can actually help with the quality and size of your final crop. If I'm looking at apples like this here, you can see there's some apples there. There we go, that's the one I was looking for. Like this one is kind of small and it's got, it's already got a bug hole in it. So that one I would pull off. This is a cluster of 3 here. You could take one off of there if you wanted. 3 I usually just leave as is. So this tree actually looks pretty good. I don't see any dead wood. And I don't see any large clusters of apples. And on some of these lower branches, I don't see any apples at all. So we may not get a fantastic harvest from this particular tree this year. Okay, here's a little branch here that's dead wood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prune it all the way back to here, because now this little branch here will probably continue to grow straight out. Here's another little one not doing so well here. I'll cut that off. Oops. And now I'll prune or sterilize my pruners. Here's a cluster you can see of 4 apples. So what I do is I just pull off the smallest apple and I just throw it on the ground. It's probably a better practice to collect them in case there is disease. It helps prevent reinfection or anything like that. But at this early stage, and this is a pretty healthy tree, I'm not real concerned about it. Here's another. This is a cluster of 3, but this one is so small, and I'm just going to take that one off. This side of the tree always seems to produce pretty well, but the other side of the tree, not as well. I think it's this side gets more sunlight, so that may be the reason, but it looks like we're going to have a pretty good crop on this tree this year. This is one of our less mature trees, and you can see I found a little pocket of webworms. Now generally, while these will defoliate a tree, they don't do long-term damage to a tree. So I usually leave them, except in my fruit trees, because they actually will encompass, their webs will actually eventually encompass the fruit and make the fruit unharvestable. So when I do find them, I do cut them out of fruit trees. So I'm going to prune. Unfortunately, that's a nice little branch, but we're going to prune that out and dispose of the worms, and keep an eye out to make sure that they don't spread. When you have infestations or disease in your trees, when you prune them out, make sure you throw them in the trash or burn them, but don't try to compost them, and don't let them sit at the base of the tree because they can reinfect the tree or spread disease to other trees. Interesting things about this tree, you can see the trunk is forked, and we actually get 2 different varieties of apples from this tree. I'm not sure if it was a cultivar that died back to the rootstock or started a sprout from the rootstock, or if it's 2 separate trees that just happen to grow this close together. But one side produces much more than the other, and but they're both pretty tasty little apples. So this is what we call a Farmstead apple because we have no way to know what the variety actually is. But over the years, we've learned they're all slightly different varieties, and some are better for cider, some are better fresh eating. So you just kind of learn with trial and error and flavor and things like that as to what each one is better for. Now that I've cut a couple of these dead branches off of this tree, I'm looking at them, and I hope you can see this. The split in the bark here. Let's see if I can get better close up in focus would be good. There we go, that's a little better. There. So the bark is actually split, and this is sun scald. And what causes that is in the spring or the winter, late winter, if you get big differences in temperatures, if you have really cold freezing temperatures at night, and then during the day it's really sunny and it warms up, that actually causes the bark to split, which makes it susceptible to disease. And you can see this one actually was pretty bad. It goes the whole length down to here. So there's like over a foot of sun scald damage. So sometimes the trees do just fine with a little bit of sun scald. Sometimes branches die off. But if it's happens frequently, it can actually shorten the life of the tree. Okay, if you can see this branch here, is not auto-focusing well. There we go. This is deer damage. The deer like to help keep our trees limbed up. So pretty much if there's anything that's easily within their reach, they're gonna chomp it for us, especially the fresh green growth, some of the apples. You can see this branch right below it. They didn't eat the apple, but they ate pretty much all the leaves off the end of the branch there. So that's just the nature of having deer around. On the younger trees, we keep cages around them so that they can actually get big enough to withstand the deer pressure. But these mature trees, they can handle it. It does lower our production just slightly. It's not major, and it is what it is. Well, that's it for today. I hope I gave you some great ideas on how to maintain your apple trees during the growing season. Let me know if you have any questions or comments on maintaining apple trees. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. See you next week.